All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the North Middlesex Regional School District School Committee meeting for Monday, July 19th. We'll call the meeting to order. Also want to notify the committee and the audience members that this meeting is being recorded. For those that intend to speak during public communications, there's a sign-up sheet or sign-in sheet on the podium. Please write your name and full address, and then also state that before you talk as well. We have a number of people submit for public comments, so we'll call you up when we get there. Do the roll call for the meeting. Randy?
Here.
Susan?
Here.
Jessica?
Here.
Mike? Here. David? Here. Tom?
Here.
June?
Here.
Lisa?
Here.
I'm here. I've got everybody, so that's good. Our next scheduled meeting of the North Middlesex Regional School Committee will be held at 7 p.m. on Monday, August 16th, and that right now will be a virtual meeting. I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. We have a number of minutes, one set of minutes, a number of accounts payable warrants, and disposal of surplus property and some donations.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Very nice not to have to do roll call votes. All right, so public communications. So a couple things before we open this up. Just a reminder for guests, and especially for those that have not attended a meeting before. The school committee is here to conduct our business, and we conduct our business in a public setting. This is not a public meeting. We welcome public comments regarding items on tonight's agenda or anything within the purview of the committee. Public comment is limited to 10 minutes with a maximum of 3 per speaker. So we do want to make sure we hold people to that. Anyone speaking, just again, please provide your full name, address, and your town. And all comments should be directed towards me, the chair. And we also ask, just because we've got a handful of people that submitted to speak ahead of time, and I anticipate there may be a couple others, that if someone's already made the point that you were going to make, there's really no need to repeat it. We understand it's a hot topic, and we'll probably get a number of comments on either side of the aisle, so if people would respect that, I appreciate that. So first up for public comment, we have Caitlin Russell. Please here.
So to sign it first. Thank you. All right.
Let's turn it on.
I'm not good with this stuff. All right, thank you. Oh, wow, okay. All right, hi, my name is Caitlin Russell. I'm a current Townsend resident and an NM grad of the class of 2005. I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of the first Americans who were on this NM Patriot land prior to European colonization, the Abenaki, Nipmuc, Pennacook, and Wampanoag. I'd also like to acknowledge that I'm uncomfortable and excited to be speaking in front of you tonight. But I teach for a living, and on most days I find that I am uncomfortable. On my best days, I'm able to name the discomfort to my students and try to model how to work through it. Learning is a struggle, but if we didn't push ourselves to the point of discomfort, we wouldn't grow. I'm naming it today because our discomfort shouldn't get in the way of diversity, equity, and inclusion work. I'm here to show my support for recent NMRSD initiatives on behalf of myself and hundreds of NM alumni, residents, and recent graduates who penned an open letter to the district in 2020. The letter has 426 signatures from current students to grads dating back to the NM class of 74. That's 47 years ago. Alumni who graduated 47 years ago suggest that we support initiatives focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Here's why. We wish that our teachers had received DEI training because through our ignorance, we made mistakes when we got to the real world. It wasn't our intention, but we participated in the exclusion of folks, perpetuated biases, and caused harm. Like most of my peers at NM, I didn't gain a full or accurate understanding of the role that racism, sexism, homophobia, etc. have played in American society. In fact, it was never named at all. We had to learn important parts of history like the Tulsa Race Massacre and Juneteenth after leaving NM because we didn't talk about these dark parts of our history. I know that students today want to have these types of nuanced conversations, just like we did. I see it every day in the health and wellness classes I teach. For example, many students asked questions this year about health equity as it relates to COVID. So by supporting teachers in DEI work, you are supporting their ability to have hard but wanted conversations with students. You are giving teachers the tools to hold space for difficult topics, for students to grapple with information and to form their own ideas and conclusions about equity. Though critical race theory won't be taught to students, some of the ideas that make up CRT will be part of the PD for educators, as Superintendent Morgan wrote in his July 9th, 2021 update. I would like to reiterate that CRT is not taught in schools. It's not a curriculum because it's a legal analysis of US policies that is part of graduate level studies. But it is important and pro-American because it's a framework that helps us understand how some laws are biased so that we can work to fix them. This is an uncomfortable truth, and there are a few folks in town who might be unwilling to believe that racism is embedded into the very fabrics of our society. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't study the true history of not only the United States of America, but the entire world history of colonization. Thank you for your continued effort to call us into these important and often uncomfortable conversations. We are excited to move forward together.
Thank you, Caitlin. Next up, we have Matthew Changelian. Changelian, sorry about that.
I'll sign this afterwards. My name is Matthew Changelian. I live 24 Ponderosa Drive, Townsend, Massachusetts. Been a resident here since 2016. So I agree, very uncomfortable conversation, equity, all this jazz, so I'm going to leave it to a different angle. Thank you for letting us speak. My topic is the equity educator and the program coming from that particular company. My question is how many companies did you interview while going through this process? Because when I started looking into this company, and I looked at the website, and I saw the video that was put on, and this woman who's the co-founder, Mrs. Batista, I found it striking that her two examples of her trials and tribulations in life and her experiences were completely the opposite of how I would want my kids to be treated and taught. The one that really caught me is she said she was very influenced by her father. Now, I'm a dad, so I looked at that and I said, okay, well, what did he teach her? His unorthodox way, and what she called him is his quirky way of teaching, I found very striking. The reason why is because her example is he brought her to what she said is New York in Times Square, and he told her to get on her bike and ride as fast as she can through a crowd with no regard to any human being that she might hit or anything else. Those are her words. Fast and without stopping. That's what she said. Do I want that person to teach the people that are educating my child? No, love thy neighbor. Do unto others. Listen with respect. Look at people in the eye. Don't not turn around. What happens if there was a disabled individual in that crowd? What happens if there was a pregnant mother in that crowd? That's irresponsible. Assault and battery, for crying out loud. Unbelievable. So no, I do not want that person, that educator, educating my kids through educators. There could be another way, but is that the right way? Is that really the right way to be a bully? We're going to teach our kids that if you're not getting your way to be a bully? I don't think so. That's not the right way. Second thing, tell me when I have time, because I got just one more thing. She was talking about her trial in court, and she made biased opinions on all the individuals. All these people are glaring at me, is what she said. Pretty much. Not word for word, but that's what she said. She said she was judged by, she knew that others took one look at her, and due to her appearance and identity, they had misplaced projections. How? How is everybody feeling about me right now? How do you feel about me right now? This is an uncomfortable conversation, and we're all having to have it, but that's who I'm having to teach my kid? I teach my kid that. I teach my kid respect. I teach my kid to look at each other in the face. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Fundamentals. And that is not what this woman was teaching. So I am looking forward to seeing the curriculum and seeing what this individual is trying to teach you guys and telling you guys to teach my kids. They're mine. They're not hers. They're not yours. Thank you. I have more, but I'll
I'll sign in afterwards as well. So, Evan Davey, I'm 8 Peter J. Drive in Townsend, Mass. So I'm here today to make a few comments about what the district is referring to as educational equity. So if I were to make a statement that racism is bad and has no place in this world, we could all agree on that. If I were to say every child is of equal value and deserves equitable challenges in their education so they're afforded equal opportunity, I think we could all agree. And if I were to say children deserve to learn history without bias from diverse perspectives and learn to appreciate and accept diverse opinions, we could probably all agree on that. And most importantly, if I were to say everybody in this room wants what's best for their children and for this community, I would certainly hope we could all agree there. Now, if you've read the critical race theory and understand the critical race theory, it probably sounds like I'm agreeing with it. However, when it comes to educational equity, it's much more complex and controversial. These equity trainers are not talking about equal or even equitable opportunities in these trainings. In reading the materials of the consultants mentioned in the district communications and speaking with colleagues that teach in other districts and have attended anti-racism trainings, it's clear that not being racist is not good enough for companies like Firefly Worldwide. In Firefly Worldwide and their CEO, in published materials, use terms like implicit bias and ideas about being apologetic. According to Cheyenne Batista, if one were to disagree, it's either gaslighting or a microaggression. And many of these materials and comments are not only very partisan and biased, but actually in direct contradiction with many of our own district policies. For example, the district policy on teaching activities and presentations states that an educational climate shall be established that will assist students in learning how to think rather than what to think. The policy about teaching controversial issues and controversial speakers, in point number 2, controversial issues in the classroom, does not include the right of advocacy. Teachers must refrain from using these positions to express partisan points of view. Point number 4, teachers must ensure that reasoned arguments of all sides are given equal presentation and emphasis in classroom discussions. There's a policy on student rights and responsibilities with point number 1 on civil rights, including the rights of equal educational opportunity and freedom of discrimination. The responsibility not to discriminate against others. Now, why do I mention that one? Implicit bias. According to district policy on instructional materials, it explicitly states that only materials that meet this following criteria will be approved. The first point, they must present a balanced views of international, national, and local issues and problems of the past, present, and future. Balanced views, not biased views. I understand that this is directed from the state, but I would ask the district leadership please consider the teachers and students specifically as it relates to these policies, and many others as the district is accountable for these policies. Teachers, administration, and students in this district are being put in an impossible and vulnerable position, as there's absolutely no way to fairly expect teachers to be experts after only a couple of trainings, and no way they can be accountable for staying within district policies and following the guidelines of these so-called professional development trainings that they're required to take part in. It's simply an unacceptable expectation. After the last year and a half, our focus as a district needs to be on strengthening our community, supporting our teachers, and working together towards our common ground that we all share. To achieve this, it requires communication and understanding, not controversial trainers and divisive agendas. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Jessica Fellows.
Hey, thank you. My name is Jessica Fellows, Sumac Drive, Townsend, Mass. As many of you know, I've emailed you multiple times about concerns with the schedule changes happening at Hawthorne, Spalding, and Ashby Elementary Schools. I'd like you to know that even though I'm here, I've spoke to many parents who share my concerns. It's not just myself with these concerns. A few years ago, there had been discussions about altering HBMS's schedule to mimic Nissitissit, and at the time there were public meetings. And at these meetings, overwhelming Townsend and Ashby community was against these changes. Over this past year, I know it's been a very different school year, but I was very shocked to hear that these plans were still in place and were being discussed in private and in closed doors over this last year, and to find out that these changes are actually in motion, with no discussion over this past year with parents, no communication. There are many issues we have with these changes. First, honestly, I feel it was pretty sneaky to continue with these plans without the communication of the parents who already expressed concerns. There's been no proof given that changing the HBMS schedule to match Nissitissit is in any way better for the Townsend and Ashby students. In fact, I've been told the reasoning for the change was inequity with the teacher class loads. There's been no, when asked what the average class size of the students at HBMS versus Nissitissit, there's been no answer. And I would think that would be important since class loads is the main reasoning. We've been told that the district wants to make things equal across the district. This is crazy. You want all the schools to be the same? Let's look at everything between the two middle schools. What is the teacher to student ratio of the two? They need to be the same, don't they? What's the square space in each classroom? What programs does Nissitissit offer that HBMS doesn't? How many paras are there at the two schools? I'm pretty positive that there's twice as many at Nissitissit. And I know they have different programs, but again, there's differences. The school schedule being different by only a couple minutes is not the only factor between these two schools. By making the schedule similar to Nissitissit, HBMS schedule will be changing and losing a lot. Yet Nissitissit, what if they changed? Again, have the teachers been consulted? Not that I'm aware of. HBMS has dedicated teaching staff that deserves more respect than this. They have a lot of positive impact and methods that have been beneficial, but yet it seems to be overlooked. HBMS has taught Spanish for years, which my daughter benefited from greatly. But oh no, Nissitissit doesn't offer it, so let's get rid of that program. HBMS has an absolutely amazing band program run by one of the most talented band instructors, and seriously, this deserves to be heard. Their program, where a teacher teaches over 100 students sometimes, and gets them to listen, focus, and be proud of the program they're in. This program from our small little community went to Hershey, Pennsylvania only 3 years ago and won all top 3 honors. Not just performance honors, honors where their esprit de corps represented something that the students didn't even know they were being watched for. How well they were in their community, how well they went through the town, went through Hershey. People were amazed by our students. This is something they learned through the band program. This is something to be proud of. Consider how many students this program has taught, moved on to the high school, and become proud of. They've made the high school proud. This is something we want to be proud of.
Ms. Ellis, could you wrap it up, please?
I'm definitely going to do that. But I would like to point out, I've tried to reach out to you prior to this, and this is my only opportunity apparently. While at HBMS, students have also had the opportunity to be part of the drama program and chorus program, but when we change the schedule, that's going to be cut in half as well. And they're not going to be able to be well-rounded students and have these opportunities. I remember my son as a 4th grader, he could not wait to be part of this band program. For what, 2 minutes difference in their class schedule? I don't know, no one's given me the answer what really is important here and what changes are actually happening. I think the district has started to lose track of what makes our school great is misguided attempt to make them all the same. We have 3 different towns in our district and 3 unique towns. That's not a bad thing. Differences are not bad, and they can be celebrated. What makes these schools special and unique is the teachers that are spending each day with our students, yet these teachers have not been considered or consulted when it comes to making these such important changes. These schools will never be the same because there are other factors that you cannot control. You can't. Such as the students, and it's the teachers that are the ones that are spending every moment with these, not the administration, the teachers. Consider these changes. Please reconsider them. And thank you to the school committee for your time.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to our reports items. I do want to thank those that got up and spoke. I really appreciate understanding the significance and the passion behind the issues. I appreciate the civility and the conversation, so thank you for that. One thing I do want to clarify as part of my chairperson's report, I know there's been a lot of information going on, and the superintendent's going to cover this in much more detail. during the equity item on the agenda. But I do want to just quote something from the MASC around CRT, because I know there's a lot of misinformation going around social media. It sounds like the folks here tonight understand that this is not a curriculum and not being taught in the classroom. But just to summarize, and this is from the MASC, so critical race theory is a framework and an analytical tool primarily used in university level courses. Originating in the 1970s, CRT was first used as a way to help law students think critically about the impact of historical and present day racism on the legal system. In the 1990s, some colleges of education also started incorporating CRT into their coursework to help aspiring school administrators and teachers better understand inequities in the context of education. And then what it isn't is CRT is not part of social studies curriculum and has never been part of social studies curriculum frameworks in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So I just wanted to make that clear. Again, Superintendent will expand on that as we get there. That's all that I had, so I'll turn it over to you for your report.
I'm going to go to the equity piece now.
Sure.
That's okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Excellent. Thank you. As I recently shared in my last NMRSD update, the Equity Board has selected Firefly Worldwide as our vendor to provide training to the staff. This decision was made unanimously by the Equity Advisory Board, consisting of staff, alumni, parents, and community members. Since that update, I've received several emails and phone calls, both supporting and questioning that decision and our equity work in general. In an effort to communicate with everyone that's reached out, I have emailed everyone back stating that we will be creating an FAQ to answer your questions and concerns, and the FAQ will be posted on the district's website. The FAQ will be updated as new questions come in, so I would recommend that if you do have questions, to please forward them directly to my office.
Vote to get rid of it. Excuse me, please. No, thank you.
There seems to be much confusion around the outcomes of the work. I want to reiterate that the professional development that Firefly Worldwide will be engaging in this year will be with staff only, not students. We are not introducing a new curriculum. What the training is meant to do is better equip our staff to discuss issues around race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, etc. when they come up in a current event or a required curriculum, such as slavery or the civil rights movement, as stated in the Mass Curriculum Standards. This is nothing new. Professional development occurs regularly, and teachers identify, and the district identify what the teachers need in order to strengthen their skills. With all the press around critical race theory, it is possible that it may be brought up in class by a student, and teachers need to be prepared to address it if it does, as current events are a part of what we do and always have been. That said, CRT is a political framework that offers another viewpoint. Therefore, the work is twofold. First, to come to a common understanding around our history and terminology, and second, to get to a place where all students feel safe and accepted in their classrooms and in our schools. Our charge comes directly from the MASC resolution, the Mass Association of School Committees, which states the Commonwealth should guarantee that racist practices are eradicated and diversity, equity, and inclusion are embedded in practice for our students, families, faculty, and staff. School committee members should ensure that our school culture and that of every district in the Commonwealth is anti-racist. The professional development will help our staff better understand the history of racism in our country and engage in productive, unbiased conversations if and when needed. Teachers will not be sharing their opinions, but based on the past year and a half, curious students will ask questions and teachers need to be equipped with the skills to thoughtfully engage. This is a part of education and always has been. Hopefully, when conversations do occur in school, they will come up at home so that those conversations can happen there as well. At the end of the day, it's up to each individual to think critically and thoughtfully for themselves in order to make decisions based on the information provided. This is not solely a topic that has come up in NM. This work has and will continue to be taking place across all public schools in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Our work began in North Middlesex last summer when I was contacted by alumni and subsequently put out an update looking for parent volunteers to help guide our equity work. This has been outlined in the budget process as well, albeit with a different vendor. Where the work is just beginning in NM, the school committee support is integral to our success. The Mass Association of School Superintendents is committed to supporting superintendents in developing and implementing a long-term statewide strategy to address systemic and cultural barriers in our schools that prevent students from knowing that they belong and will thrive. This work comes back to addressing our mission and vision and how we are inclusionary. The equity work in front of us is about us paying attention to as many unserved groups as possible, and we're confident this work will benefit all students. As a member of the Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Standing Committee for the state, I will keep the school committee apprised of our work as it progresses. And I'm now going to turn it over to the Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Nancy Milligan, who will talk about the equity roadmap for the 2021-2022 school year.
When we think of the work ahead, we have to ground our decisions and adhere to our mission and vision for the district, which states that it is our job to provide a comprehensive educational experience focused on students becoming contributing members of society. Our vision states that the North Middlesex Regional School District is dedicated to working with students, families, and the community to ensure that every student is achieving at his or her potential. The social and emotional health of all students is supported in engaging, inspiring, and challenging learning environments necessary for student success. That in order to prepare our students to become these contributing members of society, we need to understand that our federal government has cited in case law, has supported that the role of public education through the federal government is the compelling interest of eradicating racial discrimination, as cited against Bob Jones University versus the United States back in 1983. We also can look at case law of Bethel versus Frazier, that it's our duty to prepare our students for citizenship of 1986. Our state curriculum framework states that as in guiding principle number 2, an effective history and social science education incorporates diverse perspectives. It acknowledges that perceptions of events are affected by race, ethnicity, culture, religion, education, gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, and personal experience. The traditional motto that the United States is E pluribus unum, one out of many, one. A history and social science education that does justice to the remarkable diversity of our country must tell the histories of individuals and groups and honor a plurality of life stories while acknowledging our ongoing struggle to achieve a more perfect union. Teaching how the concepts of freedom, equality, the rule of law, and human rights have influenced the United States and world history necessarily involves discussion of race, ethnicity, culture, gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, and other characteristics. Effective instruction challenges students to value their own heritage while embracing our common ideals and shared experiences as they develop their own rigorous thinking about accounts of events. Effective instruction celebrates the progress of the United States has made in embracing diversity, while at the same time encouraging honest and informed academic discussions about prejudice, racism, and bigotry in the past and present. Therefore, in order to succeed in our mission, vision, and that which is required of us in the curriculum frameworks, we have worked with our Equity Advisory Board to contract with Let's Firefly Incorporated to begin the training for our staff, to begin understanding how to handle our curriculum conversations and discussions with common understanding. The training that our staff will engage in will engage all staff members in highly interactive outcome-driven sessions, which lays the critical groundwork upon which faculty examine the history and present-day manifestations of racism, poverty, and power in the United States, and develop team norms for discussing and addressing inequities within the schools and beyond. The objectives of our training will look at examining the history of race and racism in the United States, establishing shared language for describing race and racism within our community, examine the systems that hold up poverty and power in the United States, identify the ways in which racial inequities surface within our lives and in our organization, discuss approaches to disrupting inequities within our organization and beyond when they surface. These are the outcomes for the first part of our equity training with Let's Firefly.
That's all the equity piece.
All right. Thank you.
I do have more.
Oh.
So just wanted to touch briefly about reopening schools in the fall. At this time, DESE is reviewing CDC guidance for fall recommendations regarding masking, social distancing, cleaning, and operational measures. I should have more information at our August meeting regarding specifics for the end of August and early September. I'd like to thank all the community members that participated in our ESSER 2 survey. The data confirmed that student acceleration, social and mental health support, and facilities upkeep will be essential uses for the funds when reopening the schools this fall. Our top priority for the funds will be to support the hiring of interventionists and mental health professionals, and also hiring those to help out with student acceleration. DESE has created a series of guidance documents to help school districts understand and support the strategies for student acceleration. This encompasses both the academic and social aspects that need explicit attention and support for our students. And lastly, I would like to welcome, we do have two new K-12 curriculum directors in the district that were filled internally by two of our very talented faculty members. First, Dr. Kevin Cormier has been appointed the Director of Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. He's been in the district since 2006 and was a 7th and 8th grade mathematics teacher at the Nissitissit Middle School. In addition, Dr. Cormier has worked with the Assistant Superintendent in the following leadership capacities: as a math teacher leader, as a district data coordinator, communication team lead, and also the North Middlesex Regional School District Learns Facilitator. Finally, Dr. Cormier serves as the co-chair for the North Middlesex Regional School District Equity Advisory Committee. Dr. Cormier, if you could just please stand. Thank you. And Ms. Lisa Camo has been appointed as the Director of Humanities, English, Language Arts, and History. Ms. Camo has been in the district since 2001 and was formerly a 4th grade teacher at the Spalding Memorial School. In addition, Ms. Camo has worked with the Assistant Superintendent in the following leadership capacities, both as an ELA teacher and mathematics teacher, team leader, and also communications team lead, and as a professional development facilitator for K-4 summer work. Ms. Camo, if you could please stand. Congratulations to both of you. That's all I have for my report.
Thank you. Well, congratulations to both of you again. Any questions from the committee on the superintendent's report? Any of the items that we talked about? Any concerns? Mr. Carney?
There you go. Okay. So first, I guess, just to go through, I had a number of kind of thoughts that I think could use some elaboration. When we say elements of CRT, what elements specifically will we be addressing in the training?
So when we think about the elements of CRT, what elements we will be addressing is that it's a framework to look at critical issues through both lenses. Nothing more, nothing less. It's a framework to apply. So when I was trying to get my head around CRT, when questions came up this past year, one of the things that we have to keep reminding ourselves is that critical race theory is a verb, not a noun. So there's no curriculum associated with it. It's a framework to apply.
Great. In regards to why we're doing this, I know this was brought to our attention by both current students and alumni. One other thing that was mentioned to me is that that this is a mandated training that we need to be doing. Is that accurate?
It's not necessarily a mandated training, but it does fall in line with federal and state statutes around making sure that we are teaching around equity. And I know Ms. Milligan had mentioned a couple of examples in case law.
This was not necessarily from one of the comments, but just with regards to this organization that will be doing the training, my own concern was that this is a small organization, but they're relatively new. What capacity do we have to find other organizations to do this training?
Do you want to take this one?
Sure. So when we've vetted out additional companies, and I have to go back into the Equity Advisory shared folder to see how many other companies were out there, we were working with a company all the way up till the end of March, and that company did withdraw from the work. At that time, I went and asked MASS if they had any additional companies that we could be looking at, along with what came up with our Equity Advisory work. And Let's Firefly was one of the presenters that was going to be a keynote at our superintendent's conference last week. At this time, we talked about this at our last Equity Advisory Board meeting. In order to move forward in September with any company, we needed to make a decision in the springtime. And Let's Firefly was one of the companies that somewhat checked off all of our boxes for the Equity Advisory Board. She did a presentation to our Equity Advisory Board that consisted of parents, community members, staff members, and administration, and it was with a unanimous vote to move forward with Let's Firefly Incorporated at that time.
At the time, were there any concerns expressed by any members of the Equity Advisory Board?
There were questions asked of the company directly that was answered by the company, and it was a unanimous vote. So I don't feel that there were additional questions. I don't feel that at that time there were additional questions, because we had plenty of time for question and answers.
Also just to clarify, we didn't have the entire, we did have a couple of people that were absent on that particular day that just weren't able to attend. But the final question was, are there any concerns with moving forward with Let's Firefly? And there were no
But
concerns.
there were questions.
Excuse me. This is not an open dialogue right now.
But I asked questions, so I don't like the fact that you're being told that there were no questions being asked when I was the one that asked them.
Anything else?
I would just clarify the questions.
Yeah.
Questions were asked and they were answered, and I think Ms. Milligan said that.
Correct. Thank you.
Anything else, Dave?
No, thank you.
Susie?
Just a, what's the word, procedural question.
Yeah.
There's the superintendent's report, and then number 2 under new business says educational equity.
Yeah, we jumped down to that as part of his report.
It's part of my report.
Because I had a question, but I was
That's-
going to
yeah,
wait
that's
until
why.
I had the agenda, and I
Sorry.
didn't want to miss my,
Yep.
not really a question, but more of a statement.
How about?
That I do think that professional development that emphasizes the need to teachers, that having balanced perspectives, especially when working with students, and how to handle those difficult conversations, especially when there's varying opinions in the classroom. Now, I imagine that that's more of a high school thing in most cases, that you're going to be having outspoken various opinions. Maybe middle school for a few of the kids that are students that are really paying attention, or maybe there's a lot of conversations around the dinner table. But you got to be prepared at elementary, because they could also come in with opinions. And I think it's definitely important to emphasize with the teachers, and they probably all do this anyway for all the training they've had, and they're all professionals. There could be a couple that need this message. But, obviously, we don't want them strongly debating with the students about why they're wrong. The teacher saying, I'm right, you're wrong. And I can't imagine any of our teachers doing that, but it's definitely a good reminder, especially that it's emotionally charged issues. And also that we shouldn't have teachers strongly agreeing with a student that has an opinion, that other students could have other opinions that are pretty different in the room. But I count on our administrators. I assume you guys will also be attending the professional development, and to absolutely step in if you see the professional development content becoming inappropriate or against the values of our district. I think one example is bullying. Obviously, we don't have any tolerance for that here. And if that's starting to come through, then I know you guys will step in and say, time out, this isn't what we hired you to do. So that makes me feel good. And one of the things I found in my research, kind of a general topic, is that before there was such a thing as critical race theory, there was critical theory, and it was a methodology to analyze things, and that in law school there were some academics that decided, let's put critical theory and hold it up against race in our laws and our policies in this country. And using that technique of critical theory to analyze race and laws and policies together. So when critical race theory became another word, race got put in the middle of critical theory, it was specifically using critical theory to look at race and the laws, and how over the many years that we've had laws, they may have been.
Was that the article from the American Bar Association?
But no, I started to read a book on critical theory by one of the founders of critical race theory, about one of the founders of critical race theory, because I wanted to understand from the source what it was, because I know there's a lot of things in the press and social media, and I was starting to get confused about all of the different messages, so not all the way through, but that was brought up in one of the introductory chapters to explain what it is, because it really frustrates me when I can't get a good definition of things.
I felt the same way. That's why I asked, because I was one of the articles that was summarizing the American Bar Association, a lesson on critical race theory.
I don't have the name of the authors, but there was 2 authors that worked on it together. I think Richard, I can't remember the last name, and Jean, I think, I don't remember her last name, but I'm just barely into it. But I thought that was interesting. And, you know, I've heard theories that it's kind of, the term has been abused in some areas of thinkers in the country to incorporate a lot of things that it wasn't originally intended to mean. So, but the question is always, which definition is being used today? Was it the, you know, not today in this room, but today in the country, is it the original definition of critical race theory, or is it the perhaps newer definition with a lot of other things covered under that umbrella?
Thank you, Susan. Okay.
I would just add too that there will be continued guidance coming to us from the state, from the Superintendent's Association, and like the MASC for the rest of the summer and the fall, probably leading into next year as well.
Anybody else on the committee? No, Tom.
You mentioned, just some of the criteria that the Equity Advisory Board used when, checking into different vendors, I guess. Can you just explain some of what that criteria was, what you were looking for with, some of those companies?
Dr. Kevin Cormier, would you like to come up and also be part of this conversation as the chair?
You may have to put the microphone on.
Thank you.
Ultimately, when we looked at the different companies, one thing we wanted to look at first and foremost were companies that had experience with educators. There was a lot of work that was being done, or a lot of presentation that we saw about, here's how it works in the corporate world, and we can just tweak this thing and it becomes, we can do it for schools. And we didn't feel like that was going to address our needs enough. So mostly we went with who is doing this work in the education field and who knows how to provide actual professional development. Teachers, not just a random group of people sitting in front of them. And one of the things that sort of didn't come up in the previous discussion, but it also went to this, was just availability was huge, because there are not many companies doing this work in the way that we would like it. And because we had come up with one that we really liked, who backed out at such a late date, in order for us to get going in the fall, it sort of shortened the list a little bit. A lot of those companies, again, we might be able to squeeze you in here or there, but not on, say, the 2 days in August that we need to train. Or, to work with our November professional development day, because another district had already taken that from us. So that was part of it as well. But I know anyone can look at a website and have their, and you get what you can from. We all do this from any kind of products we shop from. Whether it's something as important as this, to something as little as, when I go buy sneakers online, something like that. But to sit in the presentation, to have those questions answered, to really be able to develop a sense from the person and be able to respond dynamically to a situation. That said, at the end of that board meeting, we looked around if there were any concerns, and there were a lot of shaking heads. We had given air to people who had questions. They had been responded to. When that meeting closed, there were no outstanding questions as far as we were led to believe. So we moved forward with it unanimously, as has been said several times. So I guess that's sort of it. If there were 50 companies available to choose from, would we have a different outcome? Maybe, but there just aren't. And so this was better than a lot of the other ones we had looked at who were still available. And as we kind of talked about, it's like, if you're still available now, you're probably not doing this work very well because if you were any good, you've been scooped up by now. It's going into September, so we were being proactive. I think we do have a quality thing. I do agree with your assessment that, you know, it is something that we, in the middle of the professional development, if we see things kind of go in a way that we're not, you know, this might not fly here as much, I have no problem stepping in and sort of correcting the course when it comes to that, because ultimately, this only works with buy-in. And so if we have a lot of resistance, then it's a lot of wasted time. If it's going a way that we don't think is going to get the results that we want, that's going to be an issue. So what can we do as we're going along? We're going to make mistakes. Everybody's going to make mistakes about this. If this were easy, this work, we wouldn't be doing it right now. We'd all have this mastered. So we have to kind of go into it and just know that we have the best intentions. It's not going to be everybody's favorite course going forward, and I understand that and I respect that. But ultimately, you know, as we heard from the alumni, this is what recent graduates feel was missing from their educational experience, and we have a duty to provide that to them. We have to take that feedback and then be able to say, okay, you know, this next generation of students that is leaving NM, they need to be prepared for the world in front of them. What is the thing that we're missing right now? And this was a piece that was identified for us, so we're addressing it. So, I hope that answers your question. So.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I don't know if your mic is on, so if you want to just pop it on when you speak. So.
Can we ask questions or no?
Not right now, no. If anybody has questions, you can email them to
I
us.
mean, I'll sign up and
After
speak,
the,
but I didn't have a question until I heard what you guys were talking about.
Yep, understood. If anybody has questions, you can email them to us after the meeting, and we'll get those addressed for you. You're going to respond. So this is not a public hearing, this is a school committee meeting, and if you don't like that, you can leave.
This is about us parents.
That's great, we can do
It's
a
about us
public,
parents. You guys work for us.
understood.
And what
We're
about
also
us parents
volunteers.
that don't agree with any of the critical race theory?
Let the lady speak. Let her speak.
What, so,
Let her speak.
Your spot right now.
Maybe she can speak right now.
We'll adjourn the meeting, and then say that's fine.
That dude just told me that the worst of the worst got his back, and that was all we could pick
Yeah, we
from.
got the ball out there. Good job. Oh, there wasn't much left, but this guy.
You picked what you could. You had nothing to
You were
choose from.
taken,
You
so
picked the
just-
last
I mean, how come it's kindergarten?
You guys are not going to be quiet, and respect the order of the meeting, we're going to adjourn the meeting.
We'll talk there. Sorry, I apologize. I apologize.
Of course it's a hot topic. It's critical race theory.
It's not critical race theory, that's the part that you
Yeah, and your teachers in school. Why would you even be a teacher, kindergarten teacher?
Listen, folks.
This is ridiculous.
I understand emotions are high.
Critical race theory.
We will address your questions and make sure the answers.
I don't want any teacher talking to my kid about race. It's none of their business. That's what happens at home.
All right, what if you want a special session for this?
Because we're either going to adjourn and walk away.
Well,
or you can-
that's not getting anything done then, is it? That's what we're here for.
This is the feedback the doctor was talking
These are our kids.
Maybe we should just cancel the whole thing.
So is there a way to have a special session on this topic?
So when it gets tough, you're not going to deal with us. You're just going to run.
Intelligent minds can.
All right. Second? All those in favor? All right. We're going to recess. Thank you, everybody. PM. One thing I do want to, a couple things, apologize. Apparently, I meant to say goodnight. In all honesty, I said good luck at the end of that last one. But it was going on, the stress level was high, so I sincerely apologize for that comment. That was not appropriate. And thank you very much, Matthew. Appreciate it. So that's totally not my character, and again, I apologize for that. Mr. Morgan, you have to say anything?
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, I understand everyone's frustration. I've lived here my entire life. I went to these schools, but, you know, this is my 5th term, 13th year, I think, here. I've seen more people here tonight that I've never seen in 13 years, and probably in total in school committee meetings. We've had busing situations, budget situations, staffing, education issues, you name it, we've had it. We see 2 to 3 people a meeting. So I'd just like to remind you guys, there's a lot more to what we do here than just this. There's a lot more issues at our school level. To go with that, the unfunded mandates we do have, and the things that our state leaders and federal leaders put on us, you guys are really almost at the point where you're upset at the wrong people. We have to do things they tell us to. The people that are in your state elected offices, your federal offices, they're the ones making a lot of these decisions behind closed doors. Every meeting we have is public. I know you made Ms. Fellows, it was, about our meetings being made in secret or things. Every meeting we have is open. Every discussion.
Decisions are made.
No, we have to vote them. They're all public votes.
I'm not the extreme topic you discussed.
No, but I'm just saying in general, everything we do is open. Even during COVID, they were all open. So I've been doing this for 13 years. I can tell you nothing is done, at least from what I know of these people, in secret. Everything's open. The difference is there's 60 people here tonight. There's usually 2. That's the difference. Everything is put out there. And I'd just like to encourage people to get more active. I'd love to see this kind of activity for everything we do, because this is your money that's being spent. And if you realize the things that we're up against in educating kids, I mean, I've pretty much, till I'm red in the face, talked about busing last year. There was nobody here for it. And if you knew what we had to go against that and the rate hikes and things like that, you wouldn't be happy, but no one's ever here for it. So again, I'd like to see you guys have the same energy. I'm not here to disagree with you or agree with you. I'm here to say, take this to the state and the federal people, because they're the ones that are really making these decisions in private, and then they're pushing everything down to the point where we hired and fired the superintendent, we set policy, we set a budget. That's it. But a lot of these mandates that they send down to us, we don't have much leeway in anything we do. So I'd encourage you to have your beliefs and do what you want. You should, you have the right to do that. But we've got to start pushing the people up top, because we're volunteers. We get put here. No one runs against anybody. No one's lining up to run for any of these jobs. We're your neighbors. We're your friends. The people in government, they're not your friends. They're making these decisions, not us. So again, this is the first time I've ever seen a meeting get like that, and I've been a part of some pretty interesting meetings here over the years. I'd like to see everyone come back, but for things other than just one cherry-picked item. There's a lot of things that we do here, and I'd love for you all to be more involved in this, because I think you'd have a better understanding about what we do, what our roles are, and what we're up against. I mean, if I asked you guys right now to tell me 5 unfunded mandates, I don't think you'd be able to tell us. But this is your money that we're forced to spend because someone up top said we had to with no explanation. So I'd like to see you guys back here again, but please remember, these are your neighbors. We're not here to fight you. We have to do some things we don't want to do or don't even think we need to do. If we could have handled COVID ourselves a year ago, I said this in a meeting, I was vocal about it the first time it came up. The state got in the way of this whole thing. They held us up for a year. We could have had this figured out. We have enough smart people here. We would have had this figured out last April. We weren't allowed to. They told us, I'll tell you in 2 weeks, we'll tell you in 2 weeks. 2 weeks turned into a year, and we had to let everything stay on hold. So again, we're left to pick up the pieces as volunteers with a $40 million budget for ideas other people have at a higher level that do meet in private and push down on us. So I applaud you for showing up tonight. I'd like to see you here at more meetings, not just this one part of the meeting, and get more involved and hold your elected officials that get paid money to represent you, hold them accountable, because they're the ones that hide. Where are they tonight? They're not here, are they? Have anyone called their state reps or senators? What did they say to you? Exactly. We're told. So I'll leave it at that because we have a lot of things, but please, we're here to work with you, not against you, but you have to realize we don't get to make a lot of decisions. We have to do them. So I'd like to see you channel this energy to where it actually can be effective, because they're the ones that escape this. They're not held accountable for anything. So that's it.
Thank you, Mike. I did have 2 questions just as we wrap up the equity item. Would the equity advisory be reappointed for this coming year? Does that work continue, or is the work done with the vendor?
It will continue.
Okay. Is there an opportunity for additional folks to serve on that? Do we know? Okay. Is it people have to drop off first, or?
We can look at that.
Okay. And then, as I was saying before we recessed, if people do still have questions or concerns, please do email them. You can send them directly to me. I read every single one. And if there's, again, it sounds like there is, but I mean, if there's enough interest, we can look at other avenues to engage with the public and have a two-way conversation. This meeting, again, is a business meeting. It's not intended for open meeting law in our policy to be a two-way. I know that is frustrating for people. It's frustrating for me. I wish I could respond and get into conversations. It just, legally, we can't do that in this forum. That doesn't mean we can't schedule an open forum or a public hearing. So again, please do send your questions and concerns, and we will get those addressed. All right, we're going to move on to the middle level waivers and cooperative sports agreement with Mr. Fisk.
Okay, so the information that came sent along is contained in the Google Drive. So if you all were looking at the part that's in there for whatever reason, they cannot get it to,
So it's in the folder for this?
it's in the folder, yeah.
Yeah, so this is our, annually, we're required to come back to the committee to get your support of the middle level waivers. We are looking to renew all of the previous ones, and then there are a few additional ones in there as well, and then we are looking to form a new cooperative agreement in a couple of sports, which is an exciting opportunity for both schools in that sense. So, where shall I begin? You want me to wait a second, Craig, before give folks a chance to pull that up? I know I summarized the proposal into a table format, makes it easier to see, but essentially looking to renew the middle-level waivers for the following sports: field hockey, football, girls basketball, ice hockey, girls lacrosse, and softball. I can speak to the middle-level waivers. I think the retainment of those individuals that do elect to participate in our high school sports, it's incredible to see the experience that they have, and then to see them come up and be a part of a program for 5 years rather than 4. It's a really special thing, and obviously it's something that I think is a win-win in a lot of sense for the district. We get to market ourselves to those lower level grades and get those kids up here to wear that NM colors before they're even in 9th grade in some cases. So again, just to remind you, the middle level waiver is for them to participate at the lowest level. So in most cases, those individuals have the opportunity to try out or sign up for a JV or freshman level sport. And then what we're looking to do is we're looking to also add in a middle level waiver for the sport of girls volleyball. Reason being, this past year, volleyball took a big hit with the restrictions that were put on us with the COVID protocols. We were only allowed to have 24 girls total participate. Usually that program has 40 plus, close to 50 girls participating. So we're looking really, it might just be a one-year thing where we're just looking to bolster some more participation there because of, I call it the gap year in a way, kind of had a year where our numbers were low because of the roster restrictions. And then the sport of cross country. Obviously, we're looking to maintain our cross-country teams at the middle schools, but we wanted to open up the opportunity to any diehard runners if they're in 8th grade and they want to go compete on a varsity cross-country team and they can be a letter winner for 5 years. They have that option. A school right down the road, Lunenburg, some of their best runners are 7th graders, believe it or not. They show up to a meet and they're like, "What grade is that person?" And 7th grader, and runs past everybody on the course. So it's a great opportunity for those that are looking to be a competitive runner. And I know that's not for everybody, right? So, and then also the third sport, and it's something that we'll looking to launch this year, is the sport of wrestling. So had a group of students approach me, Mr. Fisk, let's get the wrestling going. I said, if you get me 12 names, we can do it, right? Showed up the next day with a list of 14 names of kids in the high school, and I think adding an 8th grade piece to that would bolster those numbers as well. So it's really exciting. That's basically my gist on the middle level waivers. I don't know if I should stop there or if I'm happy to elaborate on the cooperative agreement piece as well.
Any questions on the middle level waivers? All right, then we will take a motion to have the school committee authorize the school committee chair to sign the application for waiver of athletic eligibility Rule 53 for the 2021-22 school year to allow 7th and 8th grade students to participate in boys cross country, girls field hockey, football, girls volleyball, girls basketball, boys ice hockey, wrestling, girls lacrosse, softball, boys tennis, and boys volleyball at high school.
Second.
All right.
Will you give an answer?
I'm going to give it to Lisa and Dave. Any questions or comments on? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Great, and then lastly would be, and I don't know if you need to amend the motion for that last one, but boys tennis and boys volleyball would be not part of that middle level waiver piece. We are looking to form a cooperative agreement with Groton Dunstable, and one of which would be a new sport added to the spring season, which is boys volleyball. There's a lot of interest to start a boys volleyball program, and by combining with Groton Dunstable, we can probably put together a fairly competitive team, because there's not a lot of schools that have boys volleyball. It's usually only the very large schools that are 3 to 4 times our size. By joining with Groton Dunstable, we'll be able to put together a very great team there, and we would be the host for that. I think arguably our facilities are the best in the state, truthfully. Walking into that gym. If you've ever seen those, nobody has those ceiling suspended volleyball nets. It's only at NM. It's fantastic. And then with that, by forming that cooperative agreement, Groton Dunstable is looking to be the host for boys tennis. So it's almost like a flip of sorts, where some of our boys tennis players would join the Groton Dunstable tennis team, and boys volleyball would be an NM team. And that's essentially what we're looking to do with that. Any questions about cooperative agreement? Sure.
I just want to thank you for continuing to find these opportunities for students. Since we've been here, we've done everything from swim teams to now boys volleyball. It's a great opportunity for our students to be able to do things they want, where we don't have the budget or the numbers for to work with our neighboring towns to give them that opportunity that they would never have. So thank you for always looking at that.
It's my pleasure.
To fix the motion?
I gave you a second motion.
Yeah, there's a second motion.
I know, but we included some sports in 17.
Right, the boys tennis and boys volleyball wouldn't be part of the middle level waiver.
Yeah, there's a second motion, and I'll read it. School committee vote to approve the cooperative agreements with Groton Dunstable for boys tennis, with North Middlesex as the guest, and boys volleyball with North Middlesex as the host.
I get that, but we voted to include those 2 sports as part of the middle level waiver, and we don't want to do that.
Correct.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes.
Right, so I think what we have to do is reconsider that, vote to reconsider that, and then amend it.
Correct.
I make a motion that we reconsider the vote about the middle level waivers. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so do you want to make the amendment?
Yes, I'll make an amendment that we keep the motion the same, except for strike the sports of boys tennis and boys volleyball.
You got it. Perfect.
And also second.
All those in favor of the amendment motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that is unanimous. Thank you, Superintendent.
I brought my book today. Thank goodness.
All right, any questions on the cooperative agreements? I will take a motion to school committee vote to approve the cooperative agreements with Groton Dunstable for boys tennis, with NMS guests and boys volleyball and boys hosts.
Sorry.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you, everybody. All right.
Jump to the superintendent evaluation. Everybody should have the superintendent's evaluation on the job. I also emailed it out. Are there any questions or comments on that before we vote to approve that?
Sorry, I'm trying to make sure our microphone was on, there's a lot to say all the time. Didn't hear what you said, we were messing with it.
I was asking if anybody has questions or comments on the superintendent's evaluation before we vote.
Comments? You said questions or comments, yeah? Yeah, no, I'd just like to thank the superintendent for all of this hard work this last school year. It has been an incredibly challenging year, and the superintendent has done a fantastic job of guiding us through this incredibly difficult time, not just from COVID, but as Mike was saying, changing guidance or waiting on guidance from the state only to develop our own and then have it be mandated and be changed after that. So I'd just like to thank the superintendent for that.
I second that. Any other questions or comments?
Well, before we vote, just a recap of the ratings and stuff, you planning on that? Okay,
I just want to see if anyone wants to say anything first.
that's okay.
You're good? All right, so the superintendent's evaluation for the 2020-21 school year, the professional practice, student learning, and district improvement goals were all met, and for the various standards that superintendents are evaluated against, instructional leadership, management operations, family and community engagement, and professional culture, were all rated proficient, and that led to an overall rating as proficient as well, so very good across the board, and again, as Mr. Carney said, very much appreciated, especially in this different year than in the past, so congratulations.
Thank you.
If there are no other comments, I'll take a motion to the school committee approve the superintendent's 2021 evaluation as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions or comments before we go?
I was just going to reiterate, I know it was probably a year of longer hours and longer work weeks for the entire staff and for the superintendent. So a lot of different things we were juggling this year that we don't normally juggle. In a normal year, it's busy. So I definitely appreciate all the extra work we put in for the benefit of our students and our staff.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That is unanimous. Thank you. Next up, we have school choice, Superintendent Morgan.
Yes, so we did want to update this just because, again, one of the reasons why we initially voted to not have school choice back in the spring was because we were unsure how many students would be returning. Our homeschool numbers did double due to COVID. It went up from just over 100 to, I believe, 238. Okay, so the homeschooling numbers went up pretty significantly, and again, we weren't sure who was coming back, who wasn't coming back. We have a pretty good idea now just based on reaching out to those families. All the principals reached out, and we do have some school choice slots that I would like the committee to approve at most of our schools. So we have the chart there. I don't know if you want me to read through what we have.
Yeah,
Does that make sense? Okay, so for Ashby Elementary, we would be looking for six slots in grade 1, 8 in grade 4. At Spalding Memorial, 2 in kindergarten, and 2 in grade 2. There are no school choice slots at Vernon Brook. Hawthorne Brook and Nissitissit both have 4 school choice slots at all 4 grades, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So they all have 4. And then at the high school, we would be opening up no slots in grade 9, 5 in grade 10, 5 in 11, and 0 in 12.
I was just curious about grade 9 in the high school. Is that just kind of a larger than usual group of students? Because it seems like the ideal time to add students to the high school in 9th grade.
Ms. Smith, would you like to answer that question?
It's because of a larger incoming freshman class coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Larger incoming freshman class, if you didn't catch that at home.
Just looking at Ashby in particular, I know that there was a lot of discussion about class sizes in Ashby. And now I think for some grades, it was higher than others. But 6 and 8 seems like that would be adding 6 first graders and 8 fourth graders. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay. And so what would that be moving the class sizes to?
Ms. Gap here. Ms. Gap, can you answer that question, please?
Grade 1 would be 20 and grade 4 would be 20 as well.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So 2 sections in each grade of 20 in each section?
Yes, those are the grades with 2.
Okay,
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, then we'll take a motion to have the school committee approve the 2021-22 school choice numbers as presented.
So moved.
Buzzer, like in Family Feud.
I'll give that to Randy this time. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, unanimous, thank you. Next up is the North Middlesex Regional High School 2021-22 Program of Studies.
I'd like to call Ms. Smith up to the podium for that, please.
Go for it.
Robin, I can't get in, at home I was able to get in the program of studies, but I can't here. Do you know?
Yeah.
Because I sent a request to approve access. I don't know if you were the one that got that request in your email.
Access, it's the Google Drive.
And for me, I can't get into it either.
Yeah, I looked at it at home, I'm pretty sure I did, but it's locked now. So I don't know if it's locked because it's still up on my computer at home.
URL.
No, I can't get into that link either. But it's the full package.
Maybe someone just email it to us real quick. Someone would have to email?
If you open the packet up, it's in the packet.
Yeah,
that's
tricky, tricky.
Well, it's both places. I included the link in your drive.
Yeah, I was reading it at home, I just can't
But
get
it's
to
also,
it.
yeah, it's also on it.
But I'll go with the packet, that was a good tip.
Yeah, don't
All right, I think we're ready, Ms. Smith. Do you want to cover the update before we go?
So we're just here to just make some changes to the program of studies that originally was approved for back in January, based on the 5x8 schedule that we're going for this year, rather than the 5x7 schedule we had originally in there. So there's just a few pages that we made some changes to that we want to make you aware. Page 8, the number of credits that students need to go on to each grade level, we had changed that for based on if we're only having 7 blocks for the students. By continuing with the 8, they need 35 credits to become a sophomore, 70 to be a junior, and 105 to be a senior, and then the minimum of 140 in order to graduate. So that's a change, just going back to what it was before. The 3 AP classes that were originally 7.5 credits that we changed to 5 credits this year to only have 1 block, where since we continue with the 5x8 schedule, we're going back to 7.5 credits for this year, which is AP Chemistry, AP Biology, and AP Calculus BC. It is going to be worth 7.5 credits this year, which is a block and a half, but will be changed, go to the 5 credits for next year, for the 22-23 school year. And just the last thing is that the number of credits was changed back to a minimum of 140, which I mentioned already, to graduate. Those are really the only changes based on staying with the 5x8 schedule. Any questions? Say that again? What about it?
You'll see.
I honestly don't know what it is because it's the same as it was before.
It just says 7 right now, and in parentheses it says 8. So and you mean 8 there, that's all. I just,
On page 26?
very top. Oh, you know what, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 26 is the packet, and there's like 14 pages ahead of it, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. It's not trying to do this lesson.
Oh, it's page 7, yeah, it's page 7. And then the last word of the first line says 7, and then it was changed to 8. At least in the version.
The chart where it says 4 credits for English, 4 credits for math, that chart.
You said it's page 7?
Page 7.
It's a different page from me. Okay.
Right at the top, it says students will be required to earn a minimum of 140 credits to graduate.
Oh, yep, thank you. We changed the 8, but not the number, so thank you.
All right, any other questions on the changes? So then I will take a motion to have school committee approve the 2021-22 North Middlesex Historic Program of Studies. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor? Vote.
We should note in the minutes that an 8 is over our program.
Yes, I think that is in the, as amended to include the one piece on page 5. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Policy subcommittee reports. Lisa, do we have anything from the authority?
No, we are good.
Building committee is, for some reasons, still on this list.
It's not closed out.
10 years. Finance, Lisa?
We are good. We have another meeting the 4th of August.
Okay. Negotiation and personnel, Tom? Well, okay. Policy, Randy?
Yes, so we have 3 policies for first reading. People here that don't know this process is any changes that we make to our policies. We have a first reading, it goes on to the website. So the community, parents, anybody can take a look. If you have any questions or concerns, you can email myself, Randy Rush, or the chair, and we will address them. They do not go into policy change until we have a second reading, usually about 3 weeks to 4 weeks after the first reading, and everyone has a chance to review them. So the 3 policies that we have up is IJNDC Internet Publication. The change on this one was just simply a change to the staff photographs identifying information and work. It was added that within our own systems in-house for identifying staff, that we don't need their permission for our systems in-house. And for DN, school property and disposal, we added a section for decommissioned Chromebooks to be offered to district parents before we go ahead and do the normal distribution or disposal process, as well as adding in recycling as an option versus just discarding. And then policy JCA, assignment of students to schools. The change we added in there is to allow for the superintendent to actually ask for volunteers for intra-district transfers to help with balancing if it comes to that. And so as a stopgap, if we need to do that, he can ask and we'll provide transportation in that case. And those are the 3 policies that we're asking for changes to. So I would make the motion that the school committee approve policies IJNDC, DN, and JCA as presented for first readings. Second.
Thank you, Randy. Any questions from the committee? All right. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, those will be able for first reading. Anything else, Randy, from policy?
That is all.
Thank you. Any other business from the committee? Not reasonably anticipated. All right. So we're going to move on to executive session, and somebody wants to do the honors.
Oh, I will. I move that the school committee meets in executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A for the following purpose. Purpose 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to and in preparation for collective bargaining with the North Middlesex Regional School District teachers, nurses, secretarial, paraprofessional, and custodial units associations, because an open discussion may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the committee. Purpose 7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements, as well as with regards to executive session minutes for March 15, 2021, May 17th, 2021, June 21st, 2021.
Do a second.
Second.
All right, so this will be to enter executive session. Randy?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
June?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
I will vote yes, so the committee will now be meeting in executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A, for the following purpose. Purpose 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to and in preparation for collective bargaining with the North Middlesex Regional School District teachers, nurses, secretarial, paraprofessional, and custodial units/associations, because an open discussion may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the committee. And purpose 7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant any requirements. Executive session minutes, March 15, 2021, May 17, 2021, June 21, 2021. The committee will reconvene in an open session. So we are now in an executive session. Anybody not on the committee will need to step out of the room, please. Excellent, thank you. So we're back in open session, and I guess I will take a motion to have the committee approve the memorandum of agreement with the paraprofessionals unit that we just approved in executive session.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I will take a motion to adjourn.
You know, I just want to say that for the public, that what this is the paraprofessionals have a 3-year contract, and we negotiate that to renew it for the next section of years. And this memorandum of agreement just outlines the differences between the current contract and the next contract, and with that, we put together the next contract. So everyone knows what it's about. It covers language changes, it covers salary changes, and anything about the contract that was negotiated to be changed between the district and that unit of paraprofessionals.
I could hear Susan.
Oh, yeah, whoops.
I just noticed mine was off, so I hope you guys got all the audio.
Randy had it covered.
We're good. Good job.
We're taking it from the room.
Nice.
Oh,
All right.
even better.
Take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Now's your chance, Susan. You can keep us here forever. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.